Hey guys, welcome to another video. I'm really excited to be back. In this video, we're going to talk about something that I've learned in the last few years and that has really transformed the way I approach business, the way I plan what I should focus on, and this has made a massive, massive difference for me. So do you ever struggle to know what you should focus on? I think we're all really guilty of this, especially now with social media, with a million of different things you guys could all be focusing on. It's really been a massive, massive thing for me, at least, to just know what I should focus on, right? There's so many different things. Shiny object syndrome is a real thing. So I really needed to find a way to be like, cool, how can I identify exactly what I should focus on, where I could get just the best result for the time that I put in. So since the 2000s, since people have been able to kind of like carry a portable device, our attention span has been like literally plummeted. Like year after year, our attention span goes lower and lower. And now with platforms like TikTok, where the algorithm is just so powerful and just so good at feeding you unlimited stuff that's really enjoyable to watch, our attention span is like tiny. Some people say it's less than 3 seconds at a time. So it's just literally crazy. So a few years ago, I realized this was a real problem for me. I used to go in all different directions and I just really struggled to know what I should just focus on. So I really went down this rabbit hole and really try and find what are the different options, what can I do to really make a big impact and change that. Do you know what Oprah, Warren Buffett, and Bill Gates all have in common? They all spend time in isolation to do really deep thinking. When I first saw this idea of Think Week, I was like, you know what, that sounds really awesome. I had never really kind of stepped out of my business to really start looking at what's working, what's not working, what makes the most sense. Because you're day to day just hustling all the time, trying to get new clients, find a new contractor, make sure the results are good, all of that. I just never had time to actually pause and think. So when I first got exposed to this, I was like, you know what, this is a really good concept. Let's give it a try. Of course, I'm sure it's the same for you guys. The idea of doing an entire week of, like deep thinking and all of that is really daunting and pretty much overwhelming because none of us have really done that. You were just kind of constantly on the go. So definitely, started with a few days, like just one day, removing all distractions and progressively increase that. And now I do a yearly Think Week, and truthfully, that has made a massive difference. So today I want to share what I've learned, how to plan, and how to get the most out of your Think Week. So let's start by going over what you need to do a successful Think Week. Then we'll go on to how you can plan the ideal Think Week and get the most out of it. And then I'll just share a few tips and tricks as well. So the elements of a successful Think Week are, first, isolation. So by isolation just means kind of like changing where you're normally at, having no one around, like your family coming in, your friends barging in, whatever it may be, just really find a way to isolate yourself. Number two is preparation, because preparation is really a massive thing in order to achieve quality Think Week. Otherwise, it's always going to be really difficult because you'll feel kind of lost. Like, right? If you tell someone just go in a room for a week and think, we'll all go mad, right? So preparation, massive. The third thing is reflection, auditing, and journaling, kind of that whole section of like, really how to think about it and stuff. And then of course, having just the flexibility within the structure. So these are the kind of the four main elements that you really need in order to do, like to get the most out of that. So if we think about isolation, it comes not only in terms of like where you actually are, but also in terms of like notifications. And nowadays it's just nuts the amount of notification we all get. Okay, so really the first thing you need to do is just turn off all your notifications. I know for a lot of you, that sounds just absolutely crazy. You might be even anxious to do this. So something that I found that really helped me, because the first time I was like, but what if someone needs me? Even though of course that really, really, really happens. But the easiest way to do that is turn off your notification, but select the number of people that really matter to you and then put those guys as emergency contact in your phone. So even if someone has to get hold of you, they can. So for me, I've got my wife, my family, my business partner, and of course, our head of customer service, just in case something kind of really serious happened, they can actually come through. And actually, I'm gonna tell you a few stats here, which is actually just nuts in terms of like just how much time we just lose being distracted by notifications. So on average, the average person, and for us it's even more so, being entrepreneurs and having all those different softwares and notifications everywhere, people estimate between 200 to 300 different notifications that we receive per day. So on average, let's say you get distracted by each notification between 5 and 15 seconds. Some of them, which we know, take way more time than that, because you receive a message from your friend and you start, going after messaging, blah, blah. You could lose, half an hour, hours. So really conservative here, 5 to 15 seconds. If you do 300 times 15 seconds, that is literally per day, you almost lose 2 hours of just being distracted. Like, right, your phone rings, you spend a bit of time, and that's not even counting the amount of time it takes to go back into focus mode. So 2 hours a day, roughly. That is literally almost 12 hours a week. Like, it's just so crazy. 52 hours a month. So that's 2 whole days. So for the whole year, you're losing 26 days, pretty much an entire month just being distracted. So not only you absolutely need to do that during Think Week, but that's just something we should all do. In fact, we're all super guilty of consuming social media too much, and that's a different topic. But again, one of the main tips that I'll say for reducing notification and all of that is to also use an app called Opal. I'm not affiliated with it at all, but I just, saw an ad on Facebook, well, not on Facebook, it was on Instagram, potentially even on TikTok, saw an ad from those guys. I was like, that sounds good, downloaded it, and literally it was actually blocking my apps properly. So I can't go on it during the day. It's really complicated for me to go on Instagram and stuff, because of course my default was just picking up my phone when I'm waiting for someone, boom, Instagram, or boom, TikTok. But now I've reduced that to absolute minimal. And when you download the app, it's just crazy. They do the breakdown of how much time you're actually losing using social media, and it's just nuts. Because let's say you're actually awake for 16 hours, every single day. The average person spends between 2.5 to 3 hours a day on social media. It's just crazy. So if that is the case, 3 hours a day, knowing that it's 16 hours, let's say you're 25 years old now and you're gonna live until 90, that's 65 years left in your life. 16 hours, 3 hours of distraction every single day. That literally means 10 years of you looking at social media by the end of your life. 10 whole years. So this is where you see people like Iman during monk mode, or even in general, this is just like those kind of guys. They just don't consume as much social media. They produce ton of content, but we all know we should produce as much as we can and just really not consume as much. 10 years of your life. Anyway, back to Think Week. Remove all notification. Make it easy for yourself to really kind of take that week and actually try and get the best you can. So the goal of Think Week is to figure out first what you should focus on, and then how to achieve that goal. So as I said, removing all distraction is a prerequisite for that to happen. To download Opal or any app blocking thing, so you can actually remove all of the app that distract you from the day. Super simple. And for me, another thing prior to even starting Think Week is just to do an audit, because that's going to be the main thing that's going to allow you to figure out where you should focus your time on. And lots of people rarely do this, but for me, this is almost exclusively the goal. So I'll prepare an audit pretty much the week prior, and then I can kind of dissect the learnings and stuff, and kind of actually move things around to make sure I actually spend my time on what matters. There are at least 3 or 4 things you want to focus on in your audit, which is just crazy that most of us never done this. Is 1, where do you spend most of your time? That's simple. Are you doing mainly meetings? Are you mainly creating content? Are you mainly doing focus work? Whatever it may be. So literally look at your calendar, look at it over a month, and then literally put all the meetings in the color, then all the focus work session in the different colors. And so then you can kind of build just a little bit of a spreadsheet that just shows you in percentage how much time do you spend working on this, how much time do you spend working on that. So do that prior. So then during Think Week, you'll actually be able to cover that. So where you spend most of your time, that's super important. Then what brings the most amount of money? What activity in your business brings the most amount of money? So what yields the highest level of profit? And finally, look at what is the easiest for you to sell. Because again, if something brings in tons of money, but it's really complicated versus another thing that doesn't bring as much, but it's super easy, that might shift things around when you actually do a deep dive. So that's essentially the elements that you just need pre even starting to make it perfect. So now literally let's go through how to prepare the perfect think week for you. And again, as I said, think week is a big word. It doesn't need to be a whole week. It can literally just be a weekend. It can literally just be one day. It doesn't matter, but start somewhere, because that will make a massive difference in your business. So in order for you to prepare, we need a few different things. First, we need to look at scheduling. So you know exactly how long you're going to take, where you're going to do it. So scheduling is going to be a big thing. The second part is location. You know, because the whole point of this is just to change location, to change the environment, so your brain can kind of connect in different ways. Then 3, preparation, and that will be a big thing. We'll talk about that. And then the last thing is setting goals. So in terms of scheduling, as I said, can be a week, can be a whole day, can be a weekend. It doesn't really matter. The goal is to just start somewhere and keep progressively do more and more. And I was talking to a few of my friends in the entrepreneur space, and they were asking me like, so how do you structure it? You know, like what do you do? And so essentially I wrote down what my ideal think week looks like. But for me, I don't want this week to be like something that's like stressful, or, you know, where I try and do the most, where I wake up at 4 a.m. and like work out and like, you know, like do 7 hours of deep work and like then again do like 3 hours of meditation. I want this week to like kind of foster creativity. I want this week to kind of allow me to come up with solutions. And so for me, if the structure is too rigid, and again, I've got very regimented stuff, then it doesn't really allow for that. So for me, again, I like it being fairly loose, but at the same time, you need to have a really nice block that you respect. The reason I say this is otherwise it just becomes really difficult to do that whole week, because then you're kind of left to your own device, and then you're like, well, what should I do now? And then of course the default is watching videos, doing all other random stuff. So really having a structure and a rough idea of what you should do really makes sense. So let's cover an ideal day during Think Week. So for me, it's very simple. I like to wake up at like 7:30 a.m., do like my morning routine for about an hour. After this, you know, again, because I take this week as not only time to kind of focus on my work and finding the like what goal I need to kind of aim for this year and how to achieve that goal, but also to kind of recenter a bunch of other stuff. So, you know, work out every day, eat well, don't drink alcohol, just a bunch of different things, because, you know, of course, we're all guilty of doing a bunch of different things, whatever you do on a normal basis. This is pretty much the ideal time to kind of recenter, if that makes sense. So again, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. every morning, 1 solid hour of working out. Depends what you're able to do. If it's just going out on the walk, if it's actually doing a full-fledged workout, doesn't matter. For me, it's just try and get the blood flowing, just because the whole goal is to be creative and kind of change up your, you know, like your day-to-day. So anyway, work out. Hopefully you actually do work out on a regular basis, but anyway. And then of course, this is non-negotiable for me during Think Week, meditation. Like you work out, you at least do 10 minutes of meditation. Make it easy for yourself, especially if you're a beginner. Just go on YouTube and Google like guided meditation for happiness, or guided meditation for focus, whatever it may be. There's so many different out there, and just start with that. You know, put some headphones and just listen. Super easy. After this, it's time to actually do some work. So from 9:30 to about 12:30, it's time to do the audit and do some research, because as I said, ideally you've prepared the audit, and now it's just time to actually analyze it, break it down, figure out what works. And then of course you might need to research certain aspect of things, but that for me is like in the morning, I kind of dedicate that whole time to do that every single day. Because again, the audit starts with pre-Think Week, but then it kind of changes on what we discovered the days before. So that first bit, the morning for 9:30 to 12:30, that's kind of what I do. Then lunch, again, chill lunch. Ideally, you kind of go and do it somewhere else. So again, you don't get stuck being at your desk the whole time. Again, just move around, do different things, you know, walk to like a restaurant nearby, whatever it may be, definitely go away. And I give myself a really long break, again, just to have as much time to be able to think like creatively. So an hour and a half for lunch, that's what I do. And then from 2 p.m. to like 5 p.m., really, it's all about goal settings. So the whole, like every single day, every afternoon, the goal is like, you start with identifying what the goal should be. So that's the first 2-3 days. And then after that, it's like, cool, let's break down the goal. Let's actually figuring out what needs to be done and stuff. And so that's what pretty much all afternoon, that's all I do every single day. Then after this, again, 5 to 6, I do like kind of like, again, journaling, summarizing done today, etc. And I'm guilty of not journaling sufficiently throughout the year, but during that time I actually do try and do a bit more. So yeah, just brought my little booklet here because, again, I try and journal like with physical paper because I rarely write. We all know it's meant to be good to put, ideas to paper and stuff. And so I really do this. Buy yourself a nice pen, and then just so it makes it fun to write with and stuff. So that's kind of what I do in the afternoon. Then dinner time, again, good food, go somewhere else, make it easy for yourself. And then what I do to try and make that whole week really fun, I watch a movie every single night, a bunch of movies that I love, and I pretty much rewatch those all the time because also, they always inspire me so much. So I'll just give you a list of a few movies that for me, like if you haven't watched those, for sure you need to watch them again. Moneyball, the best movie ever. The Blind Side, The Big Short. So that's all Michael Lewis. He wrote all those books and been turned into Hollywood movies. The Next Level. Then The Pursuit of Happiness, of course. Erin Brockovich. I know most of you guys probably haven't watched this one, but it's like really sick movie with Julia Roberts. The Intern, kind of funny. And then Joy. And again, the goal here, it's not to learn new things or anything like that. It's just to kind of get inspired and motivated and stuff. And so every time I watch those movies, depending on what I'm focusing on and what I'm doing, I just get inspired and I just do different things. So for me, that's super, super important. I don't really select podcasts or anything like that, like long form to listen throughout the day, because that's almost the opposite of what I want to do. Because again, like it's easy to put a podcast on when you work, but now you're meant to think. So you're meant to remove all distractions. Whereas for us, it's like literally the hardest thing. So I don't put any videos or podcasts or anything that I want to watch throughout the day. Like my goal is literally to remove all of that and focus exactly on what I want to do. Actually, one of the main reasons I still have those chunks of time, and instead of just like letting it free, and the reason why those chunks of time are fairly big is because, normally it's easy to think about something and in 10 minutes you're done, you're like, cool, let's do something else. But if you really want to think about something, you should keep thinking, but why and how, and just keep digging your stuff. So for me, that's roughly the ideal day during Think Week. Then, as I said, we need to talk about location. So, people like Bill Gates, they literally go in a cabin in the woods, complete isolation. Fine, if that's what I want to do, amazing and stuff. For you, it could be make it way simpler. As I said, if you don't have the money to travel, literally just clear up your desk entirely. We all have normally tons of different stuff on our desk. Clear it all out, and that will at least feel a bit different for that one day that you spend. So that's that. Super simple. Second thing, rent an Airbnb in your city. Again, go there for one day. As you progress in your business, surely this is the sort of thing like you absolutely can do. You can expense that through your business. So start like this. Again, you could, rent an Airbnb for like 2-3 days for a weekend in a city nearby, whatever, all the way to kind of like literally going away for an entire week. So now this is kind of what I do. I just did one. I went to Bali, and that was just amazing. So again, because there's plenty of time to kind of chill during Think Week. Still, like I said, an hour and a half lunch and then dinner somewhere else and stuff. So you have plenty of time to still enjoy and do some cool stuff. So I do recommend to do it somewhere else if you can afford it and stuff. But again, it doesn't need to be expensive because pretty much all you need is like internet and your computer and a quality notepad and pen. So super simple. So as I said, make it as simple as possible. The whole point here is to just change up your life a little bit. Like you will stuck in the day-to-day, in the grind. So change it up and do something a little bit different. That's all to kind of get your brain going and thinking in different directions. Now, preparation. So preparation, as I said, for me, the first thing that a lot of people don't really do when they do Think Weeks, because again, people do Think Week in many different ways. And as you progress in your career, it's less about goals. It's more like almost thinking and stuff like that. Not really about specific, like how do I get to 50,000 a month or how do I get to 150,000 a month? It's more like almost philosophical. Like you just go and think about big ideas and stuff like that. So for us, it's a bit more pragmatic. The audit is a massive thing for me because essentially what I want to know is where do I spend my time? What do I do wrong? Do I spend too much time doing this whereas I should spend more time doing that? So that's the first thing. I prepare that prior to going. And so I actually don't change task until that kind of time block is over. So for me, that's also a really kind of cool piece of advice is just make those time blocks bigger and just keep digging. Again, this is super uncomfortable to do at first, but you guys start like early and you kind of progressively do more and more of that. the ability to think deeply is just something that all of us are kind of like, we never practice it. So it makes a massive difference. Again, into preparations, again, your meditation videos that you want to watch, that's going to be in the morning. That's the only thing I can allow myself to watch really in terms of YouTube, because it's just simpler. I kind of pre-download them in case the internet doesn't work or I'm somewhere different. So again, do a bit of research. As I said, just go on YouTube, Google it, guided meditation, this ton of different things. Again, what type of workout you're going to do, that also matters, because you just want to have less distraction and not have to think, okay, what should I do this week? And then again, go on a rabbit hole and, Googling, what are the best exercises for your chest or whatever it may be. So ideally during the preparation, you just actually plan, cool, this is what I'm going to do also during the week. So you don't need to think about it and you remove all external thing you got to think about, and you can just focus on thinking on the one thing that matters. And same thing for diet. Make it simple for yourself. I'm not very strict on that. Obviously, anyway, the diet is different for everyone. But what I'm saying is I'm not changing it up for that week, because again, I don't want to have to think about it. So I'm just keeping it fairly flexible, just trying to eat healthy, whole foods, all of this stuff. So that's preparation. I prepare all of this stuff, so by the time the week comes, it makes it super easy for myself. I know exactly what I'm going to do during the day. I know exactly how it's going to be broken down, and then I don't need to think about it. I literally have the timer. I'm like, boom, that's what I've got to do. Pen, paper, think about it and stuff. And so that truly is awesome. And now, of course, the most important thing is setting up your goals, figuring out what it is that you should focus on. So that's the whole point of the whole week. And it starts with first finding what you should focus on. So that's literally the goal of the week, what you should focus on for the next 12 months. Once you've identified this, break it down. How do I achieve that? So for example, again, it could be anything, how do I get to, $1 million a year in revenue? How do I get to X amount of client? How do I get to whatever it may be? That is literally the goal of that week, to figuring out, what service will bring you that kind of results. Because that's the thing, we all roughly know how much money we want to make, but then we all have many different things that we do. And ideally, we should actually just do one or two of those things. Because again, the more things you have, the harder it is to really go deep and, systematize it, replicate it, all of that. So that's literally the goal, is what should I focus on? So once you've identified what you should focus on, because again, you audited it, you're like, yeah, this is what brings the most money, this is the easiest thing to do, etc., then breaking it down in smaller goals. So, okay, cool. So like, let's say the goal is 1 million. Cool. So how many clients do I need to do 1 million? Or how many users do I need to make 1 million revenue? And then keep breaking it down into tiny steps. And so that's why that whole afternoon, every single day, you're going to spend on breaking down your goals, because you've got to research what is the best strategy to do this, what is the best thing to do that, like how do I do that, etc. And then literally for me, my objective of Think Week is to have my whole goal pyramid fully filled up. That's literally, it's as simple as that. One single goal at the top and then ton of different steps below. So that's what I want to do. That's my goal. And then literally have the templates, which you can see now. It's fairly simple. Each block is like a goal, but as you go down, they get smaller and smaller. And then at the end, you want to break down your year and make it super simple for, okay, cool, this is exactly what I've got to do on every single week, every single month in order to get to my goal. So that's the goal of Think Week. And if you can achieve this, trust me, you're going to start unlocking some crazy stuff. In fact, this has changed so much for me. This is what allowed me to get Iman Gadzhi as a business partner. This is what allowed us to get to 1 million ARR in less than 10 months for our software, and so many different things. So just, clear focus it'll just make your life easier. And so in fact, if you actually want to know how I became Iman Gadzhi's business partner and launch a SaaS business, I'm about to record a video where I cover all of that. So stay tuned, subscribe so you can watch it. Again, thanks so much, guys. And don't forget, way less admin, way more money. Have a good one, guys.